So right in front of you is my Konica Hexar AF. Now I've recently went out and shoot one roll of film on this camera, the very first roll, which was a Earford HP5 400 ISO film, black and white. And that's the reason I want to come back here and make a video and tell you guys my thoughts about the Hexar AF. Okay. I think I'm going to actually sell this camera after just one roll. And here is a few things that I've discovered that doesn't work very well with my workflow or my personal taste. Now, it's not to say that I don't like Konica, okay? I have a Konica 3A that I absolutely love, and this is a full manual camera with a 48mm Hexar f2 lens, also a fantastic lens, okay? In terms of lens performance, I think I absolutely have no complaint for the Konica. All their Hexar lenses are very well designed, offers high contrast and high sharpness. So in that regard, this camera delivers great results. Now, what doesn't work for me is really the auto exposure mode. Okay, so this camera has a tendency to severely underexpose if your subject is backlit. And in that first roll that I shot, actually all the cases of backlit subjects, this camera delivered a very underexposed image, which was frustrating because a lot of times in those situations where the light is tricky, you kind of think hopefully the camera would make the right decision for me, right? But it turns out in those tricky situations, the camera will always make the wrong decision for you. That's one thing I don't like about the auto exposure for the Hexar AF, okay? And the second thing is the auto exposure, okay? It is not as reliable as I thought. Okay, I've used a lot of cameras in the past because I studied photography. I've did professional photography for years, and now even though I only do it as a hobby, I've experienced a lot of different lenses, different autofocusing performance, and I would say the autofocus on this lens is subpar. Okay, it's kind of, for me personally, it's disappointing. And that was the reason that I bought this camera, because it's got autofocus and it's rather compact compared to my Nikon F100, right? Why it's disappointing is because a lot of times I made sure that the focus is right on the subject, the green light lit, and I double confirmed it by looking at the distance measure in the rangefinder, and I kind of know that it is the correct distance. However, the image came out blurry, okay? And again, take my opinion as a grain of salt. I've only shot one roll, and then I've decided I want to sell this and really just focus on the Konica 3, because the manual focus on this rangefinder is very consistent. It never misses, and the visual confirmation is also satisfying for me personally to use a manual film camera. Now on here, it misses, I would say, about 30% of the time, despite the fact that it confirmed that it is focused. So that's a mystery to me. If the autofocus is not reliable, then it defies the purpose of me buying a full autofocus film camera, right? That's also auto exposure. So that's the second thing that the reason that I want to sell this camera. And the third is, despite the fact this has got a very large, beautiful, not sure if you can actually see anything in here, a large and beautiful rangefinder that is also distance coupled. So if you focus, depending on the distance, there is a distance indicator inside, which works pretty cool. And there is a green light that indicating the focus is good. It flashes, it means the focus is not able to find the subject. And there's also a little red bar that indicates the shutter speed might be too low or the light is not good enough for a proper exposure. It is big and it's bright, but it just doesn't work as well as this little tiny rangefinder on the Konica 3. This rangefinder, I mean, despite the fact it is tiny, it is bright, and the focusing patch in here is nice and effective, and it also doesn't, you know, scratch my my eyeglasses because it's plastic. Actually, I think it's not plastic, but I don't have to go so close to see the rangefinder. Now on the Hexar, the rangefinder itself is, you know, no complaints, but it's just the fact that it is placed right on the edge, and a lot of times I hold my camera, you know, like this, and also the handling, okay? So if people do this, you can see how bad it gets in terms of getting the fingerprints. The rangefinder combined with all the glass panels in the front are very easy to get dirty. When it gets dirty, the autofocus performance degrades and your rangefinder experience degrades. And like here, there's no way for me to touch this rangefinder. It's somewhere in the middle. So the rangefinder placement, again, makes this camera kind of, and now I look inside, it's like foggy and blurry and greasy. And I constantly have to have a little cloth with me out on the shoot to literally clean the rangefinder every single time I pick it up. So that's the third thing that kind of frustrates me about the Hexar AF. Okay. The fourth is it's really just a automatic camera. Like if you want to use any kind of manual controls, it's very slow to do. If you want to use manual focus, it's literally close to impossible without having to read through a secret manual system. When you turn it on to set it to that mode, you press a whole bunch of random buttons to get there, and sometimes you might just forget how to get back, turn off the camera off and put it back. And sometimes if you want the settings to persist, they actually disappear when you turn the camera off. So it is not a manual camera to start with. Okay, if you want manual control, stay away from the Konica Hexar AF. I think those are enough frustration for me to really just finish one roll and then want to sell it for other people who may find that their workflow works quite well with this camera. Point, compose, and shoot, right? Very last thing, this camera uses a peculiar CR5 whatever. That battery nowadays quite expensive. It's costly to have. So I actually printed a 3D CR123A battery converter. I put two of those batteries on that 3D printed adapter and then put some aluminum foil, and it works fine in this camera. And that in the long run could probably save me some money, but it looks like I'm not even going to use this camera as much. So there is that. So the battery in here is a more expensive kind of battery that you have to take into consideration when film photography nowadays already costs, you know, a lot of money. One roll of film with the cost of buying the film, developing, scanning if you need, it's at least $30 and up. Okay, that's one roll of film, 36 exposure. So if the camera cannot give me a consistent exposure on that just one shot, sometimes it underexposes on the backlit subject, sometimes it misses focus on important, you know, well composed shot. It doesn't really, you know, justify my purchase of a full automatic camera to lug around. Okay, and then back to my original thinking. This thing is reliable. If you focus right, if you read the exposure right, it will never fail. And in that regard, that's the reason why I want to make this video, to let you guys know the cons of the Konica Hexar AF. So when you are out making a camera purchasing decision, take my advice. And of course, in the end of this video, I will put up some shots from my first roll to show you guys how this camera performed. Maybe it was just my complaint. Maybe the camera would still work very well. And I mean, it will work very well for the most part. It's just those small details that really disappoint me personally. And that's the reason I'm going to sell this camera and keep using my Konica 3. Okay, so I hope you found this video helpful in helping you make a decision on whether you should or should not buy a Konica Hexar AF. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comment section down below. I'd be happy to answer or discuss with you. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.